It's Thursday, August 27th, 2026, and welcome to episode 145 of the Driving Forward podcast. Whether you're joining us live or listening on one of our 18 platforms, including Reese Across America Radio, where we broadcast every Tuesday evening from 4 to 5 p.m. Central Time, we appreciate your support. So we've got a crew here today. We've got a crew. We sort of messed up our timing. This is pre-recorded. It's barely pre-recorded. So, but I messed up. I was late to the call, and you guys have been patiently waiting. So I appreciate that. But coming up in the next few weeks, we're kind of busy. I know. I don't think we have Michael on the board for anything yet, but. Mike Solarz and Bain will be at McLeod User Conference with Susan Mayo. That's in Nashville this year, September 13th through the 15th. Should be a great time. We do have a booth there, so swing on by. We'd love to meet you if you're around. Following that, we have the Tennessee Trucking. Well, I guess, the next week I'm in Washington meeting with all the fun people there. So that'll be my first call on Washington. So I just got a bunch of information from the Truckload Carrier Association about this. I'm excited to go represent the industry there and talk with some of our leadership. So following McLeod, we are at the Tennessee Trucking Association conference as well. So Susan will be there the 20th through the 22nd. Immediately following that, we have a crew of people at Trimble Insight. That'll be at this moment Susan Mayo, myself, and Zach Barnhouse. Excuse me, I don't know where I got the wrong name from there. So, and then ultimately following that, we're at ATA in Charlotte, North Carolina, for their MC&E conference. So looking forward to that also. So we just finished up a summit. It's the first that we've done. Had about, give or take, 50 people that attended. Generally, all around, I think it was a good gathering of folks. I know I learned a lot of things. Just from these were relatively from the customer aspect, so the trucking companies and brokerages that attended. I can hold them mostly in high regard for their technology, and so a lot of the feedback we received was interesting. It's kind of driving some of our policy going forward. But what were your guys' takes on the summit? I'll start it out with Demers.
I thought it was a very good summit. I'm glad we decided to do it in the format that we did, keeping it regional. I think the biggest single thing that I was impressed with was how frank people were with the discussions. It was a great opportunity to hear a no holds barred take on the state of the industry from their particular perspectives, with an emphasis on technology. But there was a lot of opportunity for crosstalk and collaboration.
I agree. I think the whole pretense of this was let's open the books or play some cards on the table and be deep in our discussions on technology and process. And I think we achieved that with the group. Large amounts of feedback are around how they enjoyed the small group feel, even though it was 50 people. We divided into two groups and sort of had two different paths. So, Bain, what's your thoughts there?
I think the big takeaway I had, well, two, was AI is very much in play. I'm not going to beat that horse necessarily because I know we'll talk about it a little bit here. But the other thing that was very interesting was the conversation around cybersecurity, fraud, and everything that goes with that. I mean, that's a very broad topic, but it seems to still have a level of taboo where people don't necessarily want to talk about it because either A, there is the stigma of if you've been breached, that is a breach of trust, and so you don't want necessarily customers to understand that. And then on the flip side, there is also a level of, and this is not said negatively, there's a level of ignorance too of what else is going on, because as we continue to talk about the things to prevent what the bad guys do, the bad guys learn new tricks. And so it's a very interesting conversation. And so I think that that was one of the last things that we talked about at the summit, on at least from my perspective and my end. And it was just very, very interesting to get some of the feedback. But then there are some folks that are incredibly open about what they've experienced, what they've done to learn from that experience. And I think that was a really important piece of it, is that ultimately an attack or a breach is not a death sentence. And I think that's something that needs to really start being talked about a lot more, because that's how we're going to continue to share best practices and continue to weed out bad actors and their practices.
No, that's a fair point. And, something to call out is when I was first kind of architecting how this summit could go, I knew bringing leaders into a room that they may not want to be forthcoming in the beginning. And towards the end, that issue around, especially around the fraud side and around the cyber attacks sort of side, sort of became more open, and people started talking about what actually happened to them versus what they, previously in the first day they didn't really talk that much about it, so it was sort of skirted. Solarz, what's your take on the summit generally?
Yeah, I got to mirror a lot of what you guys have already said. The level of comfort, I think we noticed that a lot going into day two, but the engagement that I thought we ended up getting from everybody, I thought was huge. It was beneficial to a lot. Just, we all talk about how we do things differently, and I get it. Organization to organization, we do, but how many folks still had relatively the same problem? How they could kind of pick each other's brains to see, how did you get through this, or how are you planning to get through this? And just that collaboration in general, I thought meant a lot to the users that were there.
Agreed. So, the topic at hand was largely AI, I would say. AI, cyber. There was some other items too, like what vendors to use and what the state of the industry was. Largely, though, I was surprised. This is the fourth or fifth time I've asked this questions to larger groups around automations and AI. And most people in the room were barely touching on it. So most people had maybe tried one thing, or, they're using ChatGPT. There's a couple other folks in the room that were much further down that path. I expected the room to be further down the path than what they actually were. So any thoughts on that? Take it away, whoever wants to respond.
I think for me, one of the takes that I would get is, it's just, as much as AI is like that key buzzword, I think there's a lot of oversaturation and a lot of people that are flooded by that, right? And it's, every time you turn a corner, it's a new vendor, it's a new opportunity to kind of integrate with a new tool. And for some, that becomes very overbearing, and it becomes, how do we catch up? Because in a sense, most are going to feel, and they're probably right, like, if you are not using AI, you are already falling behind, right? But I think a lot of what we kind of heard there was, they don't even have the process. Like, if you don't have your processes set in stone, then you really can't just throw in an AI tool.
Well, agreed. That's the baseline of everything, right? And I think everybody kind of came to that point. Anybody else have any thoughts on that, or we'll kind of walk down the road a little bit?
Well, what Mike was talking about, that buzzword level, it's a very popular topic, but the big question is, what AI are you thinking of using to accomplish what task? And it is a giant phrase. It's like how we used to throw the word blockchain around all the time. I feel like there's a tendency to be, AI, yeah, it's cutting edge, it's AI. But as we found with, it's not just an AI thing. It's anytime you look at implementing a new solution, layering a new tool on top of a bad process is going to produce just a faster mess than you're dealing with today. So sure, you can automate the heck out of your whole company, but if you've got some bad data, if you've got some clunky processes in there, you've just found a way to do it faster.
So, when we went down the journey kind of about pain points, the ingestion of orders was actually one that surprised me that we were still working on today. So I think everybody in the room raised their hands saying, hey, we're not really utilizing this right. What can we do there? So that's I was very surprised considering how advanced some of the companies are, that the hand raised there. And then also on the back office automation side, that kind of popped up. What other things surprised you guys from the summit generally?
I think that was one of the, and not to again beat the dead horse, but the order ingestion was so surprising to me. But then as I looked a little deeper into it, I had conversations with people, it lost a bit of the surprise, because ultimately, what is it? This is how the customer communicates with you, right? And in this industry where there are 50 people waiting to do your job, if as a provider, you're going to do what the customer says. So creating that standardization and making things simpler, it made a little more sense. But it was just interesting that as a whole, as an industry, we're not looking to say, hey, like there has to be an easier way for us to do business together. Outside of that, then it really was interesting to hear people as they talked about how they look at technology solutions. And so that was not just their AI providers, but like their TMS providers or their maintenance software providers, whomsoever it may be. And I think we've seen this really over the last couple of years, and we will continue to see it, is there is a rumbling going on around, like, are these providers the institutions and the softwares and the services that we still need? Is there a way to combine? Is there a way to separate it out? Is there a way to do this better and more efficiently? And so I very much felt that in the conversation of, we're continuing to look at this stuff, but we also still don't quite know what to do, because also look at the industry. We're not seeing the same swing, back positive as we saw the swing negative, for the last 2-3 years. So there is still a bit of tepidness around that.
Yeah, absolutely. Tepidness is a good way of putting it. Tentativeness, a lot of people are not moving in those directions that normally we'd see moving, and it's a much slower pace. Some of that I was surprised. I think it may be vendor driven, more than anything else. Vendors are having a tough time deploying some of those solutions as well. So generally speaking, though, the understanding of what's possible and the platforms that are out there, I think there's so many that it ends up being an overload for a lot of the people. So
but there's an appetite for it. I want to be very clear, like, as we talked about all the technologies, and again, I don't want to just key on AI. I will say I have made that analogy too, Michael, of AI on blockchain. AI is here to stay. Blockchain is back there. But there is an appetite for this. There is an appetite to be more efficient, to leverage technology, and to increase productivity. I don't want to say do more with less, but like increase productivity of individuals. And the other thing, as we're talking through this, that I found interesting and very positive, is that there was no real talk about let's reduce headcount. It is no, like, let's make sure that we're getting the most out of them and we can make them the most productive. And that is not only from a throughput perspective, but also productive as far as income, as far as revenue, margin, like all those things. And so that was a really positive thing I heard, is that we want to keep these folks here because we know we need them.
I agree. It was a lot of focus more on how do you streamline processes? How do we get our people from the daily firefighting, if you will, putting out all of these problems and actually being able to use their systems in a way to make more educated decisions rather than just fixing things.
No, that's fair points. Michael, you have something?
Yeah, I wonder too if part of the healthy skepticism around the new shiny piece of technology that's going to come along and save your life. I wonder if part of that is the reaction or the fallout of some early adopters of AI that went on a rampage and laid off all kinds of workers because AI is here to save the day. And we're reading stories in the media of companies realizing they might have made a mistake and gone a little too hard, and now they're having to bring some people back. But in the trucking business in particular, once you have somebody in the industry that knows what they're doing, they are extremely hard to replace. You cannot parachute people into this industry and they pick it up overnight. So for those companies that are thinking into the future, I really think they are looking at this as something to augment and improve on their systems, and not so much as reduction of headcount. Because once those people are gone, you're never getting them back, and it takes a very long time for somebody to walk into this business and truly grasp how it functions.
No, that's true. And I mean, generally speaking, outside of back office and maybe some of the front office for larger organizations, the mid-size and smaller really aren't seeing a huge reduction in staff. What they are doing is doing a lot more work potentially, but we're not seeing. I mean, originally we saw some large swaths of people. I think that really affects technology. I think that has a bigger play in software development, where you're seeing 7-to-1 ratios of development to what the output is. That's on the high end, but more likely a 3-to-1. So we're seeing a lot of stuff like that, but we're not really seeing 5 people getting reduced to 1 in any particular role in transportation and logistics, unless you potentially have 50 or 100 people in your back office. You are ripe to see some multipliers there. But generally speaking, we're not seeing this reduce cost that much. Well, it potentially is reducing cost, but it's doing that by creating people making people more effective. So I think that was a resounding statement from those that are using it, is they're just situationally far more aware than their competitors by a long shot. So, so anything, I mean, I don't want to sit here and talk about AI for the next 4 days, but, or 45 minutes. Anything else related to AI that had kind of jumped out at you, or thoughts related to it?
I mean, I said it during one of the sessions, like, people are using it in your organization already. So it is important that you are developing a strategy around it. So, like, that is something that you cannot overlook. But also, like, it is a great tool. And, like, everyone on this call and many people who are listening to it do use it. And so, again, it is very much here to stay in this space. And but again, your people are using it. So it is much better to have guardrails around that than trying to go out and lasso what they're creating without having any idea what it is.
Yeah, agreed. To kind of leave that up, or to polish this one up, it's truly understanding your vendor base. They are all over the place with this. So, working with a vendor that understands transportation, deploying solutions that make a lot of sense, but also offer flexibility to your organization to expand upon, so you don't end up with some sort of vendor sprawl where you have 40 companies in this space that you're working with, which is potentially the road that we appear to be going down, because most of these vendors are kind of working with each other. So we're going to take a brief pause here. Let's play our venture logistics video clip when you can pull that one up. But we did record a couple testimonials about the summit and what people thought about them. So Natalia, if you're ready, go ahead and play that one.
What's going on, everybody? Robert Bain here, back again, GLCS Summit at the Twins game. So real quick, man, introduce yourself, who you're with, what you do with them, and why you decided to come to the summit.
Yeah. Alex Rapp with Venture Logistics. So been with Venture 5 years now. Last 3 years I've led their IT team. Started as a business analyst and then led the team. And then just transitioned in to the billing and collections role. So I'm leading the billing and collections team.
No pressure there.
Yeah. So it's a lot of manual tasks, and been working with GLCS to solve some of those process issues and system issues.
I think we sat on a call talk about that, actually.
Yeah, we did. Yep. So, and I've worked from an IT perspective with Nate and the GLCS team now, coming up for the whole 5 years. So, hearing that you guys were doing this and being able to put some, names to faces and meet some other folks at GLCS, but then also network with, industry leaders and see what problems people are solving is really what I wanted to come and do. And, through day one, it seems we're all dealing with similar issues, and, people solve them different ways. So it's been good conversation.
Awesome. Love that. Anything you're especially excited to take home with you?
I think, again, I took a bunch of notes today from just the way people are approaching and solving similar issues as our own, and some of the process and reporting that was spoken about today. Like, it just sparked me. Maybe I won't, attack it the exact same way, but it just got me thinking, and I think I can go and, make change with some of the discussions we had today.
Awesome, man. Love that. And would you attend again?
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Great.
Awesome. Well, Alex, appreciate it, man. Thank you.
That was a good one.
Polo was handsome.
What's that?
Guy in the white polo was handsome.
Oh, yeah. I don't know about that. I think you're biased. So,
Say what I said.
So, other sessions we had. So, I mean, we kind of talked about the state of affairs in the industry, and I think the group, or state of affairs with technology in the industry. And I think the group largely centered around a significant amount of pain with their TMSs. That was resounding in the room, but really no place to go. That's the other resounding statement that was in the room. They've explored and they've not been able to find any place to go. So everyone's waiting for that easy button TMS to show up, and a lot of the driving conversations around the issues with TMS actually were connected to integrations. So that they're just not capable of integrations at all, and some of them were some are at different levels than others, but thoughts on that, because those discussions went far beyond just the session and kind of continued on for the whole 2 days.
I mean, we had a lot of TMSs that were represented at the summit. I want to say at least 5 that I counted. Major players, some of the ones that are newer and up and coming. And you're right. I mean, the common thread is that not impossible, but it is a challenge to integrate multiple systems to the TMS. And ultimately, the TMS is your hub, right? Like, that is your operating system. That is what is the center of your transportation universe as a transportation provider. So that becomes really tough. And even some of the ones that maybe are backbone off of other very popular platforms, they can be a challenge to connect outside of that ecosystem. And so I think the common thread was finding a good partner that can connect as many systems as possible, and then also figuring out what are the best processes to capture that data and keep it clean if it cannot be fully integrated to the TMS or to whichever part of your system you're going to make is your source of truth. And I know we talked about a lot of different solutions for that, whether it was data lakes and data warehouses or other different workflows. But again, ultimately it came down to there is a challenge both operationally, but also financially when it comes to integrations, because some of these are not inexpensive to integrate to. So that is another concern that was brought up. And I think that's going to be an ongoing conversation as technology continues to evolve, is do integrations truly cost what we're being told they do?
Yeah, fair enough. I think as they become more flexible, the integration cost comes down. But currently today, many platforms are not very flexible, and those who think they're flexible typically are not. So I don't think we've found any platform that's been able to handle the use cases that we typically bring forward.
Well, that's the thing. When you start to get complex use cases and you need data points or automations across multiple systems, because that's your day-to-day work, that flexibility, it's tough to match that.
No, absolutely. So, it was called out from that side. Integrations was a pretty hot topic, just generally across the board. So we also had a session about, beyond the connected truck, and I unfortunately didn't get to sit in on that one much more than a few minutes. But the capabilities of trucks today and the amount of data that we're piping in and out of the trucks today is just exponential, not to mention everything else that you can utilize there. Did anybody get a chance to sit in on that session?
Yep, I was in that one. Yeah, so
that was Pedigree.
yes, so Pedigree did that one.
Sorry, Mike, what did you say?
So yeah, Pedigree did that one, and it was a great job by them, just kind of walking through the difference between data and what you may consider as noise, right, versus what is an actual signal and what is meaningful for you to build off of. And I think the complexity in that, just like when we're talking about flexibility across systems, is noise versus signals is different per user, right? Per even segment. If you're in maintenance, you may want some of these, but if you're in operations, you may want other reports. But the ability to be able to bring these different data points that we have now, and we have that data just waiting to send out to signal, whether that's a resolution or an issue that we have, is huge these days.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't we queue up the Pedigree chat briefly as well that Bain conducted with Rocco, and get ready on that one. I think, generally speaking, there are some major players in the connected truck space. Pedigree has a very viable solution. They're actually a pretty well-known company. They've been around for some time, so they're not new. And they have a slightly different perspective on things. So, but if you can play the clip with Bain and Rocco, I'll tell you.
What's going on, everybody? Robert Bain back here again. GLCS Summit. We are at the Twins game. Got my man Rocco Berari. How you doing, Rocco?
Doing well, man. Doing well.
Awesome. So good to have you here. Real quick, introduce yourself. Tell us who you're with, what you guys are doing here, and talk about why you partnered with us for the summit.
Yeah. So I'm Rocco Berari, as Bain said, VP of Sales at Pedigree Technologies. And, we're here because, GLCS, we know when your team says you're going to do something, you stand behind it, your team follows through, and we know that you support the industry, and we want to support you guys.
Awesome, man. One, we appreciate that. It's very, very exciting. Anything you've heard so far this summer that you're excited about, or you're excited to take back to the team at Pedigree?
All the AI discussions. AI has been all over the place today, all morning. I know it's going to roll into tomorrow. And that's something that's so ingrained in the industry. It's something that everybody needs to learn about, really, to take that next step. So that's what I'm excited to bring back.
Absolutely. Awesome, man. Well, one, we appreciate the partnership, too. Would you attend again?
Oh, 100%.
Fantastic, man. Best there is, best there was, best there will be. Rocco Berari, folks.
Oh, man, that went to his head.
Rocco's my boy. I had to do it.
Yeah, fair enough. Michael, you apparently followed the assignment. I guess, the white GLCS polo. None of us wore our white here today. So,
Well, one of us had to show up and look good.
Yeah.
I did appreciate being able to sneak a reference to Bret the Hitman Hart in there. Yeah, that was great.
I'm glad someone caught it. Well done.
Wow, I didn't even think of that one until after you said it. Now that locks in. But yeah, that's funny.
Execution, baby.
Yeah, fair enough. So, all right. So when we come back, we'll continue on the discussion. Well, one of my favorite sessions was what would we do differently if we were starting over. That was a full group session, and I think that's when we really saw. That was the first session, I think, of day 2, and everybody had been out. We went out to a Twins game and spent some time there. So everybody had kind of gotten open and more friendly with each other. So that session we got a lot of great detail off of, and we'll jump into that when we get back from break here. So let's run the break and see you in about a minute.
If your fleet's downtime looks like chaos, you're missing out on GLCS. In the time-critical world of trucking and logistics, every minute counts. Meet GLCS, your expert partner in managed IT and technology services. We integrate seamlessly with your team, bringing seasoned IT professionals with deep trucking and logistics expertise. Imagine your software updates running smoothly, complex issues resolved quickly, and operations humming with efficiency. GLCS has your back. Our support doesn't just fix problems, it prevents them with our industry connections and proactive approach. We keep your trucks rolling and your brokers working. Think of us as the added resource your company needs to unleash its full potential. Visit glcs.net today and keep your business driving forward. GLCS, where efficiency meets expertise.
And we are back. So
where do I get that setup with the 7 screens like dude had in the video? I want that.
well, anything's possible. So
It is.
I've seen some crazy ones here lately. Actually, the setups at some brokerages are getting a little nuts. So, do you really need 5 screens? I mean, do you really? So,
seeing that and then the big
one giant one with the big
Yes.
curve on it.
yes,
Yeah.
the 49-inch curve screen. I'm like, man, I kind of dig it.
so I can get behind that. I mean, if anybody's been in my office here, you'll see I've got a 32-inch here, a 32-inch here, and a 32-inch here. So, I mean, I've got 94 inches amongst 3 monitors. But I mean, part of it is the problem I can't see anymore. I got old. So, but the other side is, I mean, if I had to go another layer above this, I don't know what I'd put on my screens. So, 3 seems pretty effective. But 5, 6 seems to be, a lot of real estate you're having to manage. So, certainly if you're only using one monitor, and we've been into places that only have one monitor, you get almost a 50% increase in productivity just by giving your user a second monitor. So, so digging into the session, what would we do differently if we were starting over? Anything jump out on that one? I mean, I kind of led the room around bit by bit, but any thoughts there?
Second monitors all around.
Yeah. I mean, some of the questions that that prompted up is, what would people buy differently? I talked about a variety of different things about, or how would you buy differently, which could have included, hey, the demo didn't really cover everything that we expected it to cover. Or we thought we covered the demo we thought we covered everything in the demo, but then we go to production and it falls way short. So we have that. I mean, anything you would unbuy, I think there were several statements there. A lot with specific vendors that I will not state, but generally speaking, they were unhappy. And I think the entire room was unhappy with one particular vendor, and it's probably not the vendor that you think it was. So, if anyone's thinking they know who it is, they're probably wrong. So, so I think that was the type of discussion, one person would bring something up and, we've struggled with this vendor or whatnot. And, the rest of the room would jump on that or potentially say, well, we did this and we didn't have that problem. So, another one was, what would we roll out differently and how, which led us to a big bang versus parallel discussion. So Michael, you helped me with this one. What were your thoughts on the room's discussion about doing projects with big bangs or rolling them out in the smallest denominator?
Well, before the Big Bang discussion, what I thought was interesting about the what would you buy differently part was how much emphasis got put on what they've learned from some bad purchases in the past and the big gap between what they saw in the demo and what production looked like in reality. And when they started to dig into it, a lot of those important questions around who is this provider actually stocked with? Do they have industry people working for them? Or have they just wandered into this industry because it looked lucrative, but they don't have an industry background? The second one was who participated in the demo? And the number of times you had a very small slice of the company participate in that demo and get razzle-dazzled by all the features that are being promised when some other members of the company should have been there and weren't. So having a larger range for your demos, but also bringing in those references. So if they're claiming that their product can do XYZ, then give me 5 references that will attest that actually does happen in the real world. and can proudly stand behind the promises that your product is making. That part of it, I was quite pleased with how forthcoming people were on the mistakes they've learned from the past with demos. But when we got into the big bang versus the rollout, I was a little surprised by the number of people that were in favor of big bangs. And of course, as a project manager, I'm the exact opposite. I want layered, structured rollouts so that you don't have to shut the company down and clean up the mess if something goes wrong with a big bang.
Yeah, I mean, what was funny is, as we kind of talked through it, the overall side of the big bang is it can be a cost reduction if you have it go correct, right? We've done a lot of projects, and we typically don't look to do any sort of large rollout at one time because of the risk associated with it. But when I look back at some of the best projects we have ever done, the big bangs that we did with them because they were required that way, were some of the most successful projects. So, and to a few people in the room's point, we know that we're going to have a time period, and the cost is just going to be cut on this particular day, versus a smallest denominator rollout followed by another can end up giving you opportunity to say, you know what, we want to pause for a little while. And there's no such thing as pausing a project, right? When you press pause on that project, you're still spending money. You need to keep the team acclimated. You need to keep the vendors involved. Unless you're canceling the project, you're definitely going to spend some money as a project runs idle for a while. So it was a good discussion generally around implementations just as a whole, even complex ones. So
some of us, I think, also just enjoy controlled chaos, right? So I mean, a big bang, while yes, there's a lot of risk and it can be scary, if you have the ability to roll back, you also learn a lot very quickly from a big bang, right? So you can get that info, and if you have the ability to roll back, go back, fix, and come back, right? But I understand Michael's perspective entirely, as a PM wanting that phased approach, but sometimes those projects just draw out too long as well.
One thing that was pointed out that I really agreed with, and we've seen it on larger projects, is one of the risks to a structured rollout is when the old system is kept alive and running in parallel, it is way too easy for staff to keep their hands on the safety blanket, and they just don't want to let it go. And because you're running in parallel, they never jump off the cliff and really learn to fly. And it holds back the success of the new system.
And I think that speaks to the larger, I don't want to say issue, but I don't have a better word for it. When it comes to these big projects, and whether it's a rollout, whether is that change management sucks. It's hard. It's difficult. And I would say as an industry, we are not generally good at it. And because to your point, Michael, we have like systems running in parallel. You have to make sure customers stay, connected and are getting the things that they need. And so reverting back to what is least painful is a lot easier than moving forward with what will be temporarily difficult, but ultimately better for the organization, for the customer experience, and for the individuals. So I think change management was not necessarily directly alluded to a lot, but very much you could sense that as the undertone of like, we didn't do change management very well. And again, that's a healthy organizational understanding. And so what does that mean? That we would have done this different, even scoping the projects we would have done differently with, we know 80% of our business runs like a normal transportation provider. It is that 20% that we will spend all of our time on, all of our effort, and we'll make or break this project.
Oh, yep. Valid points. Valid points across the board. On day one, kind of rolling back a little bit, we talked, I think we kind of breezed over this one, but we talked about historic tech stacks, right? A lot of these people have inherited, like the TMS was bought before they were even there, or potentially in some cases in the room before people were even born. And I think that was a number of folks in the room. That TMS was selected in the early 90s by chance, and they're still on it. So, they're carrying these disparate systems that were bought with really no strategy in mind over the last 30 plus years, in some cases, literally closer to 40 years. And there is no strategy around it. So then, you look at today, and many of the companies have not developed any sort of strategy going forward around their connected systems. So it's, someone goes to a conference and comes back and says, oh, I like this. I saw something. Let's buy it and let's put it into place. But you're not really looking at how it fits into every solution you own. You're not strategically building this out. And with the way that the technology is moving, it makes a ton of sense to start categorizing what you have into various different layers. What's your system of record? What's your execution layer? What's your connective layer? And then how are you getting your reporting and whatnot? So any thoughts? Was there any discussions that I wasn't part of in that you guys had?
For Lou and I, when we did because we kind of manned the session for the roadmaps, right, and kind of building those. Everything that you said actually, to the extent, surprised me a bit. The lack of a roadmap at almost every customer that we were working with, right? And I don't want to say it surprises me that there isn't a well-defined roadmap, right? Because I understand we're very busy, we're putting fires out, it can be hard to do a well-developed one, but to not have kind of a clear plan or a well-defined plan on how you would build off of that, I
think it really speaks to the reactive nature of the business and how fast everybody needs to solve problems as they come up. I think we use the term firefighter an awful lot because it's accurate. But what I was just thinking of was, even in the case where you have some people that have looked at the long-term roadmap and they've started having those internal discussions about where are we going to be in the next year or two, what are the requirements going to be, what is the tech debt that we are still beholden to that's holding us back from trying something new. And while you're having all these conversations and you're getting ahead of the game, depending on what part of the industry you're in, your supplier, who, again, depending on where you're at, may have a lot of decision-making power on your behalf, phones you up one day and says, hey, guess what? We're going through a systems change. This is the piece of software that I now require you to use to continue hauling my loads. And you have 60 days to roll it out. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Which gives you no time to look at dependencies or
Right.
how it is with anywhere else.
Yeah, so you're mad scrambling to keep your supplier happy and adopt this new platform that they've decided is great for them, and therefore it is great for you.
I have so many thoughts on that, because if you look at this specifically visibility platforms, and the million of them that are out there, and the capabilities of today are just so different. So that is a difficult field, right? And in many cases you're working with the same vendor twice, and having to double stuff up. Heck, they might be your customer as well, or you might be their customer as well. So it's difficult on that side, and you end up having this stack that doesn't make a lot of sense because it's so disparate between this happens with this scenario, and maybe even a customer has more than one platform. So, and EDI on top of it. So you're dealing with all this visibility, or the requirements surrounding visibility plus EDI, and it creates that very, very difficult scenario to be in. Something I do want to talk about, and this might tie into or take up quite a bit of time, but related to the tech stack, just things that simply do not belong today. So transportation logistics inherently has been a people business. We throw people at problems. That's been the case since I've been in the industry. It's still the case today, although it's starting to become looked at differently. So one of the things in the tech stack that I talked about was things that don't belong. I think this resonated kind of across the board. The first one being, spreadsheets are not a system of record. And it's funny, almost every new customer we talk to, I bring up spreadsheets not being, a system of any kind. And that the moment you're using it for a dispatch board or whatever the case it is, you're broken and it's hard to scale. Another one was email as an integration layer. I think we're starting to see that happen more and more. Not to mention, it's very easy with an AI solution to build integrations off of it. And that's fine on a one-off scenario or when email is the source of truth in the case of an email tender. But we see a lot of crazy stuff happening in email. So any thoughts on that from you guys? As far as things that don't belong.
I will say this, and it may be a hot take, but because everyone uses it, but EDI, because it's antiquated, it's ancient, and it's not standardized. But we're going to keep using it because there are shippers that use it. But that is a technology we should not be using.
Well, it's a standard that's been around, and this industry is horrible for standards. So the standard that's been around for a very long time. It's been around actually as long as APIs. So APIs go back.
The only standard part of it is the initials, because one company's 204 is not another company's 204.
Yeah, generically though, that 204 is an order tender, and tell me how to standardize a bill of lading, and we'll get there. So, because there are groups, the NMFTA specifically, that are challenging those status quos, but yeah, EDI is a thing, which, I called that out to a point. I called out Gary is not an API, right? So, which is simply the guy that's sitting there plugging everything in when the data doesn't move right. So and EDI has become this big, all-encompassing thing, and it's not what it used to be anymore. So, you can say EDI and actually mean an API direct connection to a customer today, but it has something to do with orders and tracking and whatnot. Any other thoughts on EDI?
Ooh.
Can we say that since spreadsheets are used everywhere as Band-Aid measures, the current EDI is just another form of a fancy spreadsheet to provide a Band-Aid for something we haven't fixed yet?
I don't know if I want to broadcast that out completely, because EDI is needed, right? EDI in its old form is probably not, but the requirements from customers might be there for it. But a modern, what we would classify as a modern EDI or a direct customer integration, that's not going to be anything different than what it is today. So I don't think you can because the term EDI has spread. In my opinion, it's spread so wide that it's hard to. If you can actually define, EDI is electronic data interchange, right? So we're doing that. That's an API. That's whatever. We're doing that. So I don't know if I want to put it on the shelf if it's got to be put down, because I don't think we really have anything better than it yet either. So
needs healthy reform.
What? Say again.
Needs healthy reform.
Yeah. There's been lots of companies that have tackled that sucker too, and there still are lots of companies that are tackling it. So, another one that popped up was shelfware. So just those products that you've bought that are just sitting on the shelf and you're not using them. A lot of companies don't even realize that they have that. We encounter that all the time when we do an assessment, that there's a number of different pieces of software, sometimes expensive, sometimes not, and you're paying for them still. You're either paying a monthly charge or a maintenance fee on those products. So to be very aware of what you're paying for and that you're actually using those things. So, we found this out, a year ago. We put down a solution And then I looked in July because we were coming up on our 1 year renewal. And I wanted to make sure it was gone, and we still have people using it. So, it's supposed to be shelfware. It was supposed to be done, but we had a couple people that were still using it and still needed to migrate. So that can happen truly to anybody at any time. So,
and it could be any software too. It may not be just a standalone. It could be modules within your main platforms. And so it's, to your point, Nate, it is really important to, do an audit of your invoices and of your contracts and of the things that you're paying for, because again, you may have XYZ module that no longer adheres to your business because it may have been something for intermodal as a for instance, and you no longer do that business, so you may not need it. So it's important to consistently do those audits of the entire tech stack, but specifically get into the modules and the different things you are paying for within the main softwares, because again, some of that stuff does get, I don't want to say hidden, but it can get lost in there.
Agreed. So the last session that we had, the last two sessions we had, Mike, I think you ran one of them, and Bain, you ran the other, which I think was cybersecurity. But Mike, yours was building a practical technology roadmap. So we kind of talked about struggles and what we're dealing with. And, now we're looking at, this is what you need to do going forward. I danced back and forth between both sessions, but can you give me a overview of kind of what you talked about and how the room accepted it?
Yeah. So the first part, and we actually kind of called an audible on it during it, if you will, because of the fact that we had kind of came with the the roundtable view of how is your current roadmap built, and what we found, like we said, there are a lot that do not currently have one. So we had spent a lot of time just going over what are the needs. Can we define our processes? Can we define the needs that we are currently trying to tackle? That was the biggest thing, was making sure that we weren't all, the shiny new toy, right? And kind of going on there. And can we define where we are currently as a business and what issues are we trying to solve, right? That we could at least start there. And then how do we build that? How do we get the buy-in from the organization, from the bottom level all the way to the top? And how are we making sure that we're bringing in all of the appropriate SMEs, right? Bain and Michael, you had both kind of hit on a piece that we spent actually a lot of time in on this one as well, and that was change management, okay? What we come to find is that, you guys said, hey, we're not very good at that as an industry. I mean, I would argue we're not very good at it as people in general, right? We're creatures of habit. We kind of sit in to the area that we know, and where we really focused on was, how do we find that core team within our organization, and how do we define who those folks are? And what I had kind of recommended, and what we had kind of talked about throughout, is that differs potentially per project, right? Because you're going to have different subject matter experts based on whether it's a new software that we're trying to do, whether it is maybe an update to our current, right? What is working now versus what we need it to do? And that is where I would say a majority of our conversation went, was that change management, and how do we define the users that should be involved and when we get them involved. And then there's, of course, the fun part. How do we get ownership to agree and and kind of pay for that, right? Because at the end of the day, you may not have a budget that's set every year, because it's based on, hey, I need this tool now, or I don't, right?
And there's a ton that comes with that, from a strategy standpoint, from an execution standpoint, as you're going through it. It's you're dealing with all kinds of different projects and movement of people, and like you said, the change management across the board. Change management was a pretty big topic from everyone.
The structure, right? Building a solid structure and processing, I would say, was one of the key takeaways from the summit as a whole.
Yeah, eliminating emotional buys. I mean, that's a big one. Something looks good, it's marketed well, whatever the case might be, and then feeling the need to purchase it because you have FOMO. That was certainly a topic. So we're going to do the last clip of that we have, at least on for this segment, from the Twins game as well. So if we can run that, then we'll close out with a few last thoughts. So go ahead.
What's going on, everybody? We are here, GLCS Summit. We are out here at the Twins game. Very excited. Got some friends. We're asking questions. We're seeing what everybody's thinking so far about the summit. So real quick, introduce yourself.
My name is David Vogt. I work at Cliff Eastman Incorporated. I've been utilizing GLCS for probably 8-9 years now.
Awesome. Almost a first timer. What's your role there at Beastman?
I do the IT, project management, food safety, 28 years. I kind of have my fingers in everything.
Fantastic. And what have you heard so far? What's got you excited to go home with so far at the summit?
I have to say, coming back with the AI, how that interacts, really good meeting on EDI and where that's going and processes and really the connection. It's a small group with people in knowledge and sharing a lot of good information.
Awesome. And then would you attend again?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. We're ready for round 2.
Fair enough. Good old Dave. So, all right. So the future of the summit, I think we're debating, how often, when, where, etc. Resoundingly, keeping it small group was something that everyone agreed upon. I think there wasn't an attendee who said it should be larger from the customer side in any way, shape, or form. So, 50 to 70 people probably at most, potentially running it a couple times or more a year. Figuring out the logistics behind that's another thing, but we'll see where we go. So
We have a spreadsheet.
What's that?
We have a spreadsheet for it.
We have a spreadsheet. We always have a spreadsheet. So we got Gary. We got Gary dealing with it. So
Yes.
Wrapping things up here, we got a few minutes left. Initial or final thoughts on where things went, how they, any sort of major takeaways that we didn't touch on. Mike, what's your final thoughts? Mike Solarz, not Mike.
Yeah, there you go. No, like I said, I think the final thought I had was just how much people really enjoyed the collaboration across it. We all face the same or at least similar problems, and being able to kind of work through and see how those were handled by others and potentially how we could attack those, I thought was very beneficial. And just kind of seeing everybody in the industry come together and help each other excel was big for me.
Great. Michael?
I think the decision to keep it small and regional was a very good one. And also the people who were in attendance, the level that they were at and how they looked at and spoke about problems. It was very collaborative. And I think people came away with a lot of nuggets, got some value out of it. So definitely keeping it regional and under a certain level allows those type of cross-table discussions to happen.
Bain, final thoughts.
Again, a 10 out of 10 would do again. I put it in the group chat. Gary in the spreadsheets, sick band name.
Gary in the spreadsheets. There you go.
Rock that. But no, I loved seeing the collaboration. Very much told the story that this is not an adversarial business or an industry. This is very much a collaborative one. And watch people people want to win and they want to see, and there's enough business to win. It is not finite. So that's really my big takeaway is that we don't want to see trucking companies fail. And so seeing people come together and say, hey, we understand we may be competing over some of the same business, but we don't want to see you fail because the technology or because you made a mistake. We want to see it because we just, you play on the court and you play better than each other. So I think that was a big takeaway I got.
Perfect. All right. So the one question I have is, Michael, what is your background?
It's a city in Inner Mongolia from between 1000 and 1300 AD.
Gotcha. It was a city then.
It was a city.
So,
Yes.
fair enough. Now it's a dust pile. So
Now it's a tourist attraction.
is that just a picture you picked up on the internet, or is that one you took personally?
No, this was just a cool photo that I spotted and thought, I'd like to turn that into a painting, so I grabbed it.
There you go. At least you don't look like you're in the same house as Solarz. So
We usually are in the same house.
I know.
Yeah,
They're roommates and best friends.
Yep. Fair enough.
This is in the backyard. out behind.
All right. Well, with that, we're wrapping this one up. Stay curious, stay informed, keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Until next time, drive forward with purpose and innovation. Thanks for watching.